All right, folks, how are you all? James here. So just wanted to kind of touch base, I suppose, with everybody here. This is James Northridge. Some of you are familiar with who I am. Some of you maybe not. But this is really an opportunity, I suppose, to have a look at Zoom, have a look at what it's like, how you potentially can use it in terms of, educational psychology, dealing with clients. And I know there's a lot of people that are on here that necessarily mightn't be education psychologists, and that's okay too. It's just a case of learning a little bit about the likes of Zoom. And you might have seen over the last few days that there's a lot of controversy, I suppose, for want of a better word, in terms of some of the security and some of the issues around using Zoom. And we're going to go through that. Hopefully I'm going to step into how to set it up. Of course, I want to talk a little bit about the other options that are out there as well. So before I get into some introductions, introduce my colleague here, Judie, what I want to just say is set a few ground rules for our chat over the next little while. So we've got quite a few people on, right? So we've got about 36 people that have logged on already. What I'd like you to do is to stay quiet. Hopefully that'll be something we can manage for the next 45 minutes or so. So in terms of the etiquette around this, right, I'm just adding people here to the waiting room and I want to talk about that. But if you can keep your mic muted, that would be fantastic. So just please, I'm adding people here as we go. So please just keep your mic muted. Obviously I can see you in terms of the camera setup, and then towards the end of the session, what we'll do is we'll take a few Q&A. If there are questions, please drop them into the chat. And the kind of schedule of the session for me really is to give you an overview, like I said, the basics of Zoom, the options are out there, talk about like the elephant that's in the room, and that is the security, so how can we mitigate, I suppose, and we can never fully mitigate some of the issues and concerns around using Zoom or, video teleconferencing. However, I think there's lots of things that we could do that could make it an awful lot safer for both you and for your clients. So we'll talk about that. I'll talk about the pricing, and I'm literally going to screen share. I'm going to jump into my Zoom setup and show you what advanced basic settings are there that can really make things different. And then I'm going to jump it over to my colleague, Judie, who's going to do a phenomenal job of making us look far better on camera. Even though my setup probably isn't perfect here today, right? And I want to say, Judie, I did this intentionally. Just to show what's good and what's not, because so we're obviously all working from home, right? We all find ourselves at home. If you do hear a crying baby in the background, that is my 19-month-old son who's trying desperately to get into the room because he knows I'm on the computer. But my setup here in terms of my lighting, probably not ideal. So you can see that to my right here, there's a window, and it's kind of, like it's more bright on this side. Should I have moved my desk around and had the window facing on me? Yeah, I should have, but moving these dual screens here and all that sort of stuff probably wasn't ideal right now. So Julie's going to go through some tips and tricks in terms of how to use camera better, how to talk to your clients, build that bit of rapport. And I know that's something that's come up just a little bit. So I think, yeah. So I think that's something that's probably popped up a little bit as well. So let's just jump back. So I think somebody has their camera on. That might be Mary. You just want to turn your camera off there for a second, Mary. So what I might do is just jump into doing a quick, thanks Mary, just doing a quick kind of screen share, if that's okay. And just having a kind of I suppose a chat in terms of my own experience. And then I might give Judie a chance to jump back in there and maybe give her, I suppose, background and where she's coming from in terms of using camera. So again, quick introduction, James Northridge. I run Your Ability. Some of you probably do know me. Some of you have worked with me, and really my background is predominantly in and around assistive technology. So I would have done an awful lot of work in assistive technology over the last 5-10 years. Running Your Ability, we would ran summer camps for a number of years, and that was kind of our key thing for actually 5 years, would you believe. We had over 2,000 kids that came to some of our summer camps, which was a phenomenal experience. And we ran them all over Irish universities. I then went to UMass Medical School in Boston, and I did a Marie Curie research fellowship. And so there I did a lot of work around assistive technology, more so for kids that had high dependent needs. So kids that would have used AAC, for example, so augmentative and alternative communication, and looked at kids that were potentially verbal or minimally verbal, and we would have looked at how could we use technology to help them communicate. So that really was a 3-year stint that I spent in America, and it was really good because it gave me an insight into what the education system's like there, and interestingly enough, in terms of today's discussion, like the use of telehealth there was really big. So I was based at the medical school, and we used Zoom all the time for our 7 o'clock stand-up meetings, which was always fun. But we would have worked with clients across the state, and would have used telehealth for most of that. So it's kind of interesting to kind of bring it full circle. And I know, like from reading a lot of the concerns and a lot of the things that came in here, it's such that I think what really is evident is people are just unsure of how to use Zoom and maybe what's out there and what's available and what's not. And so if any of those questions are coming up, have a think about it as we're talking. And we'll kind of dive into some of those more deeper concerns. Judie, do you want to jump in and just say a quick hello and a quick background in terms of yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Judie Russell, and my main thing that I do really is teach digital marketers and business startups how to create videos using their phones. But as you can imagine, over the past few weeks, my job kind of has changed a lot, and I'm assisting a lot of different people from a lot of different industries on how to make their Zoom video calls mostly look better, whether it's pre-records or live calls. And I'll just go through kind of 5 tips to improve your video quality so that your audience can be as engaged as possible.
Super, sounds great. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually just going to jump straight into sharing my screen, if that's okay. So I am going to... Okay, so people will probably see this. One of the key things for me, I suppose, is to talk about, first and foremost, like, what is Zoom, what is it not? And we've seen, again, there's been a lot of kind of concerns about how it works and how it doesn't. And so what I wanted to do was kind of jump right into it. And like the increase in the last 3 weeks that we've seen of people actually working from home obviously is phenomenal, right? So I looked just last night in terms of the daily users of Zoom. So there's 2 million daily users. And so if we think about the growth and the exponential growth and demand on the likes of Zoom and Teams and Google Hangouts and all these different platforms that are available, it's pretty intense. So I guess what I want to do is just talk about Zoom as the first and foremost, and then we can talk about the other ones that are out there. Okay, so what I thought I would do initially is just kind of look at some of the alternatives and see what else is out there. What else could you potentially be looking at? So in terms of, I thought this was just kind of a nice kind of overview. So a lot of people talk about Microsoft Teams. That's Teams is one, and maybe I'll ask Judie in a few seconds to jump in and just talk about her experience, because I know that a lot of universities use it, a lot of companies use it, and so it's probably one of the widely used ones. It works mainly with Office 365. There are a few drawbacks, right? It's not necessarily free. You do have to have a user account, so there's a lot of, I would say, more maintenance in and around it. Is it as good in terms of voice and audio and video? I don't think it is, but it does have an awful lot of other opportunities to kind of collaborate with people. And I think for the cohort around this call, that's not necessarily what you're trying to do, right? You're more one-to-one, trying to work potentially with other people, so it's more that one-to-one interactions, and you want it to be as easy for the person on the other side as is possible, if that's a parent or if that's a child. The other one that I just want to touch on here is GoToMeeting, another reasonably good one. One that came up in the survey that I sent out to people. WebEx is another really good one as well. Is it free? Yeah, it has a free version for sure. However, you do need to get the client on the other side, so the user, the parent, the child, whoever's on the other side, to download a piece of software to be able to engage with it. So that's obviously a little bit problematic, I would say, for the most part. Google Hangouts is another relatively good one, or Google Meet. Again, not that there's not a free version, but you do have to have an account to log into it. So there's a few kind of drawbacks, I suppose. The one that I wanted to touch on, which I think is really nice in terms of telehealth, is this one here. I'm going to struggle to pronounce the name. Somebody can do that later for me. There's my dyslexia showing through. But anyway, this is a really nice telehealth kind of model, and it works super well. It's more American based for sure, but I think if you're really concerned about security, then this is one to look towards. It's nice and interactive. They don't have to download software on the other end. It has a free version that you can trial and get started with. And I tried it out over the last few weeks. I've spoken to a few educational psychologists and speech and language therapists that have been using it here. It seems to be working relatively well. It does work with payments as well. So if you so needed to take payments online, you can do all that through this platform. It is GDPR compliant. And it is HICWA, so not necessarily HICWA compliant, but certainly some of the standards are met within this platform. So I think this is a good alternative, but there is a paid for version, and there's probably just a little bit more to it, I would say, and it's more aimed around telehealth / telemedicine. So that's kind of an overview in terms of what's out there. Judie, do you want to just jump in for a second in terms of your experience with using Teams?
I said I'd mute myself because I'm on a rickety chair and it's making loads of noise. But last week, I suppose what I was focused on last week was trying to get interviews recorded by people online, so that they could share them afterwards. And it's a really great way to even a 5-minute interview with someone about how you've changed your course of business to go online is great. So I tried different tests. I tried Teams, I tried Zoom, and I tried Google Hangouts. And by far, Zoom was the best one in terms of the quality of the video, in terms of the user experience, and in terms of my own ability to kind of make changes and to just get the best one out. And, as to James's point, there's a lot of negativity around Zoom online at the moment. There's a lot of Zoom security issues. And I feel like nobody's actually looking into the behind of the security issues except for James. Because the security issues aren't it's almost across every platform that the same security issues are there, and they're not that big. It's just, I think what's happening is the competitors are making it out like headline news kind of things, like watch out for Zoom, it's really bad and stuff like that. Whereas I'm staying on the Zoom bandwagon after putting a lot of research into the stuff that's going on.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, actually. I think the key thing here is that it's not necessarily that Zoom is really bad. It's more so, I suppose, that regardless of what technology we use, and we have to be cognizant of the fact that, there are some security issues. There's no doubt about it, right? There's potential for all sorts of issues. And I think, one of the big things that came up actually was there was a lot of concern around Facebook. The data of people that were using Zoom was being sent to Facebook. Now, unfortunately, if we really delve into this, it was just the iOS app. So if you downloaded the Zoom app and you put it on your phone or you put it on your iPad, then they got the name and detail of the person who downloaded it. Now, again, the key point here is that regardless of what app you download, within reason, the vast majority of apps, that data goes to Facebook across the board. And when you sign the terms and conditions to download an app, that's literally what you do. And what happens is Facebook put a pixel basically on that user then. So they can track you on Facebook, they can track you on other websites. And that's how, sometimes we have this thing where, well, I was sitting on my computer and I was going through something and this random ad popped up and they must have heard me talking. It's not necessarily that they heard you talking, but they knew what sites you were on in the last few days. They knew when you came on to a certain site. And that's literally how people are targeting. It's the level of behind the scenes targeting that's happening. And even as a company, in terms of your ability, we can track people that come to our website by having cookies and pixels and all that sort of stuff. So I think you just have to be cognizant of what's out there and be aware that there are settings. And one of the big things that happened over the last few days especially was this Zoom bombing. Has anyone heard about that? Yeah, so there's a bit of Zoom bombing going on, right? Let me just jump in here and I want to share one or two things with you. So let's have a look again back at Safari. So I pulled out some of the key issues. So if you just do a quick Google search of Zoom security issues, and they've actually brought out a really good blog themselves just recently. But if we look, like there's quite a lot going on, right, in terms of privacy, and there's a whole array of guides. Why is this important? Why is it not? I'm going to send some of the ones that I think are most important for you to be kind of aware of, right? But if we jump into this one, I think the word is always pretty good. This was the third, which was last Friday. So what's been happening is this sort of Zoom bombing. And what was happening basically was, and this happened in Dublin, actually. I was talking to a friend of mine who was involved with a local J club, and a few schools have had this issue. But basically, people are setting up a Zoom call. They're setting up a public, or they were at least, a public meeting. And then they were sharing that meeting on social media, and with no password, with no waiting room. So basically no restrictions in terms of who could access this meeting. And so there's a number of bots, like pieces of software that are out there that can literally just pull those down and can jump straight into that Zoom call. Now, that can be stopped very, very easily if you set a password on the Zoom call. If, like you saw here with this one, I had a waiting room. So like, again, I'm going to share my screen in a second and you'll see it. But I literally can see everybody that wants to join, and I can either block them, I can not let them in, I can automatically mute them as they come in. You know, there's various settings that are there, I suppose. And if you have any concerns in and around Zoom, please pop them into the chat, and I'll make sure I get to them as well as Judie's talking. But there's one thing I just want to pull up here as well, and that's GDPR. Excuse me. So a lot of people are concerned, is Zoom GDPR compliant? Now, again, look, you have to look into it yourself and the level of detail, the person's details that you're sharing. Like, it is very sensitive information, obviously, that you're going to be discussing with clients. You're potentially going to be recording the video if that's something that you want to do. But if you look at their website, if you look at lots of the sites that have analyzed it, certainly it is compliant currently. And so it was one of these things that was going around that they weren't compliant. I looked into this quite a lot, and they currently are compliant in terms of the security. Now, you have to, by default, go in and change some of the settings to ensure that it is GDPR compliant. And I think that's a really important one to pick up on. So hopefully that makes sense to people. So give me a second here and I'll jump around. All right, we're still all with me? If people have questions and whatnot, please, thanks. Please just jump some of the stuff into the chat, and I'll get to the chat. While Judie's talking, I'll pick up some of the questions and queries. I'll pull them together, and then I can jump back in if that makes sense, right? So I just want to talk about Zoom in particular in terms of the pricing plans and what's out there and what you should be going for. And I'm going to jump into my actual Zoom account, and I'm going to jump into my account and then just give you an overview. And look, for the day that's in it, I'm obviously going to be showing you my account details, my ID details, and all that stuff. Really stuff that you probably shouldn't be sharing. But look, for the want of the betterment of the group that are here, I'm going to do that. And I think it's important that you see how it actually works. So in terms of the Zoom setup, there's of course this kind of basic personal setup, and it's really good. I mean, to get you off the ground, there's 100 participants. It's unlimited time one-to-one, which is important. However, if you have groups larger, I think it's 3 at the moment. Let's see here. Yeah, I think it's 3 or more participants, then it's a 40-minute limit. So for this kind of a session, I obviously would have been cut off at 40 minutes if I didn't have the pro account. There are certain settings that you can't toggle on and off, and that's where I suppose I'd just be ever so. I mean, for the sake of €14 a month, which is ex-VAT, for the sake of €14 a month, I mean, I think that the pro account really is where it's at. You have so many more options in terms of both basic settings in the background and advanced settings. But if we look again, if we look at security, like, I think these are the key ones that you need to be aware of, and I'm going to show you these when I go in. So you see this one here. So it's ran over an SSL cert, right? So the encryption is at this SSL level, and not to get into the technicalities of that, but basically, if we use online banking, for example, you see that small little lock that appears. It's been ran over HTTPS, which is a secure version, I suppose. The other thing is the encryption type. So basically, just to hover over that. So encryption is really important, and basically what encryption means is that what I'm doing right here, which has been sent directly to your computer, is being encrypted on the way across. Now, it's not a full level encryption, and I don't want to be careful not to get into the technicalities of all this, but it's not like full level encryption basically, but it's partially encrypted. So it would be really difficult for people to hack that. Why the likes of Zoom and many of these platforms are being hacked is because people are setting up open meetings with no passwords and no waiting rooms completely, and basically there's open links for anybody to find, and that's one of the key issues. And I think you have to be so careful in terms of the settings. And I'm talking obviously at you here a little bit, but what I want to do off the back of this is I've pulled together like a booklet that will be, I hope, quite helpful for you. So I literally just set out, here are the settings you have to turn on to make sure you're relatively safe. Here's how you engage with a parent or child. You know, and I think once you see that, that will make sense. And obviously I'm just kind of speeding through it here a small bit. So let me just look at the pro account again. Obviously all the versions that are over here, you do get an online storage version. So we can talk about the pros and cons of recording sessions, but I think it is useful to record sessions for sure. I typically record my sessions. And I think it's really for you, especially maybe to analyze back on the session, depending on what you did. It might be beneficial. I mean, I typically, again, record all my sessions either for my own analysis or to share back with a parent. So if I'm doing an assistive technology review or I do a review with somebody, I'm like, listen, I might have been talking at you not an hour, but you can play back the video, you can watch it back, and I'll share that on cloud storage. And that comes with this. There's a lot more admin kind of features that are built in here. So let's jump straight in. Is that making sense, people?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So any questions, again, just ask me. Just pop them in the chat. So I'm just going to go ahead and log in here. Excuse me. Okay, so this is all coming up for people. So you'll see on the left-hand side here, I can set up my profile, obviously. There's all my details, which I shouldn't be sharing with you. So you can see how I logged in, the type of license I have. Just set up your time, you know, your time zone. Obviously, Zoom is a US-based piece of software. So you just need to alter these. And it's important that you set up your time zones when you log in first, because and your date formats and whatnot, so that then when you actually schedule meetings, it'll be set off of your time zone. It's just a small little thing. Here at Your Ability, we use Google, right? So we have Google Calendar. You can do the same for Outlook. You can automatically hook up your Zoom account to your calendar, whichever calendar that you happen to use, which is really useful because then I can schedule meetings within my Google Calendar or within my Outlook. And there's a few plugins that are available. I'll send you the links to that afterwards. So that's kind of the basics. If I go to meetings, so if I open up meetings, that will literally just open up what meetings you have on. You can see that this is today's meeting, obviously. It's got a meeting ID. I can dig in a second and I'll schedule a new meeting just so you can see what's happening. But let me come down here to admin, and then I'm just going to go to user management, and then just users in general. So again, dependent on your organization, if you are a larger organization, I know there's a few people on here potentially from NEPs or consultancy, you know, maybe smaller consultancies that have 3 or 4 people. It's probably no harm to have a few people under one account as opposed to them all having the same account. Them all having individual accounts, because you want to have a standardized suite of settings basically, and it's much easier if you do that once and people use the same account. Let's just go to account management on the left-hand side. That's probably the easiest one to show you. Okay. I'm going to jump back up here to meetings. So see this one here on the left-hand side, room management. That's not necessarily something that I use, nor is it something I think that you will be using. So you can kind of almost ignore that. If I go to a, I think it's account profile. So again, you can see that I'm set up under Your Ability. That's my role. There's my ID numbers. If I go to account settings. Again, same sort of idea. And the type of meetings. So these are the type of meetings I have. These are, sorry, just a little bit slow to load there. So if I go to, I'm in account management, I'm in account settings, and then within account settings, these are some of the key things I think that people just need to be, I suppose, aware of. And these are the key kind of changes. So by default, these are the scheduling meeting settings. Okay, so do you want your video to be on by default? Do you want participants' videos to be on by default? I feel absolutely not. You know, for the simple reason that it's kind of a little bit dark. Trying up that ever so slightly. Sorry, Julie, my lighting is pretty poor here. So basically, you don't. You want to keep that turned off, which is quite important. In terms of the audio type, it's telephone and computer, just on the off chance that somebody was going to log on from their phone. It's not something that we do as much here in Ireland, I don't think, or across Europe. It was much more of a US thing. People would literally log in on their cell phones. And here's another one: join before the host. Like you want to make sure that's always turned off. You don't want people literally logging in before you, the host, logs in. Let me see. So it doesn't, like, I as you can see, I literally have all these turned off by default. In terms of authenticating users to join meetings. Now, if you want to go to another level, you can specify that the person that you're connecting with has a Zoom account, and that you get their Zoom ID, and you're really confirmed that it is a person that you're dealing with. But I think that's probably not necessarily required. So here's a big update that actually literally just happened yesterday. So as of the 5th of April, Zoom has brought in that you have to, it's not even by default. I've seen there, I can't see to turn it off. So they're requiring a password, and you would have seen when you got the link, there was a password in there, but I also had set it in such a way that when you clicked on the link, it should open up and bring you straight into what's called a meeting room. So you saw that little meeting room that I had set up as well. So that's on by default. Require a password. Yeah. So these are all things that are kind of key, I think. This is what I was just talking about there a few seconds ago. So embed password in meeting link for one-click join. I use that because I think I'm only sending that link to you guys. Now, if I wanted to go on another level of security, I probably would turn that off if there were my one-to-one sessions in terms of parents, because if a parent, for example, shared this link, or if you guys shared this link with anybody else and the password was embedded, then there by default, that person could just open the meeting. So just be ever so careful. But it's almost like two-step security in that there's the password, but then there's also the next level, right? There's the level where they're in the meeting room. So if I can see you guys here, and I can see all the names, and I can see who wants to join, and I can literally let them join, or I cannot, you know. And if you're only dealing with a parent or a child, or with a family at home, you know, it's just one person, and you know their name and their details, and so that should appear. Let me just come down here ever so slightly. So I see this one here: mute participants upon entry. Obviously important. I didn't want you all chitter chatting once we came straight onto the chat. I just want to pick out anything else I think is important here. Okay, so in meeting basics. So this navigation is also on the left, and it's here on the right. So require encryption for third-party endpoints. By default, this isn't turned on, and this is something that's quite important. I'll show you this as well. You can actually do it within a meeting if you haven't it turned on. But I always make sure that is turned on. So that basically is making sure that the encryption from both sides, so from what I'm talking here and showing you, is been encrypted as it goes onto your computer and as you view it. So it can't be, it's just another level of, I suppose, a level of security. Now, there's a few steps down here. I mean, this is completely up to yourselves. Do you want to save the chat? Can you have private chat? And again, if you're only using this on a one-to-one basis, then it's not really a big issue. I think it's really nice to be able to record what was said in the chat so I can follow up on it afterwards. And you know, I'm going to jump into some more details in a few seconds around how you can share your screen, how you can share your iPad, how I potentially could give one of you guys control of the screen that I'm sharing. So if we really are doing something that's quite interactive, it's relatively straightforward, and it is quite doable. Let's see. So I turn a few of these off. Feedback to Zoom. This is completely, I suppose, your own up to yourselves. Do you want to use polling? Again, if you're only using a few people, then it's probably not necessary. Judie, jump in if you see there's anything that I should really be saying. I just want to talk about, there's obviously annotation notes are really important. So if you are trying to do something with a kid and it's more of a, not necessarily an assessment session per se, or it might be just an engagement and you're trying to get them to do something. So you can annotate, you can use this, what's called like a whiteboard. You can actually save the whiteboard content afterwards and share that back with the parent. So it has a built-in whiteboard, which is kind of nice. This is what I was talking about a second ago, remote control. So basically, when I start a screen sharing session, I'm sharing my screen, and so I could give potentially, let's say in my situation, I'm talking about Office 365, and I want to show them text to speech, and I want to show them some of that interaction stuff, and they don't have it on their laptop, and maybe they're dialing from their iPad, and I want to show them how it works, and I'm saying, okay, I'll show you how this works, and then I can give them literally control from their laptop, so they can use my Office 365 when they're sitting at home. And I think that's a really important piece that is probably overlooked in terms of Zoom versus other platforms, the likes of Teams or the likes of WebEx. A lot of this kind of stuff isn't available. I think that's what makes this ever so slightly more interactive for the kind of work that you might be planning to do. Okay, and then again, let's get into more advanced settings, breakout rooms. That's really if you have small rooms. Let me see, closed captions. Again, dependent on the people that you're working with, you can turn on closed captions. So if you have somebody who's hard of hearing, and probably we should just do it anyway by default, right? With my accessibility UDL hat on, I should be doing it anyway. But certainly I have it enabled, and it doesn't come enabled initially out of the box. Yeah, I think, there's a lot of other kind of settings that are here. There's one other thing I just wanted to jump to, which is quite important. So if you're somebody who uses Facebook and you have a bit of a following or whatever, you can live stream directly from Zoom into Facebook or YouTube if you wish. That's probably a good one. And then there's something else on here I want to show you. Okay, in terms of the admin options, this is just one other thing just to bear in mind. And again, this will be recorded, and I'm going to put this in a booklet. But if you are sharing your iPad or your iPhone, they have this option here to blur snapshot on iOS task switcher. So as you're switching from one app to another, or maybe you jump into the settings, it automatically will blurry out the background as you switch. Because sometimes you might have sensitive information that's up there, or for example, if you jump into settings on an iPhone or an iPad, it will show your username and your maybe your email address or whatever it is. So that's a nice little one. Again, it doesn't come on by default, but this is something that I certainly would be turning on a group level, so that you don't want to share those kind of more detailed bits and bobs. Does that make sense? So Judie, is there anything else that you want to kind of add there, or is there anything that I should be?
You know what, all I'd say is that like your kind of run through of that, James, I think is so beneficial, because you're kind of pointing out the ones that are important. But I'd advise like everyone to just spend 10 minutes, go to their browser, type in zoom.us, find the settings, and just read through, so that like what's available to you, what's not. And then there might be specific ones to you that you're like, oh my God, that's so handy. That might not be specific to everyone else, like the whiteboard thing. I think that would be a great one.
Yeah, I think that's one of the key things. It literally is just mess about with it, and that sounds a bit silly in some ways, but I think it's like, how do you best use it, and how do you how do you jump into it properly? I think that's really what we kind of need to get to, because again, like, it's just a case of testing. And Judie was saying there a few moments ago, you literally jumped in and kind of tested, I suppose, the back end. You tested this versus Teams versus something else. That's probably something that I think that we all need to do. And if you are doing these sessions you're planning to do them potentially with parents, please do it obviously, like a trial in the office, or I don't know, get your husband or wife who's downstairs, like, and you're literally upstairs, just do a quick test, send them the link, set it up. So what we might do right now is I'm going to come back and I want to show you actually setting up a meeting and then stepping through the steps of that meeting. But maybe, Judie, would you mind if you jump into some of your stuff right now? Would that be good?
So
Awesome.
guys, I'm just going to share my screen now and show you some slides, just to make sure that this is working. Can you see that, James?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah,
great. Okay. So 5 simple steps to improving your video skills. So I'm going to start off with step 1, which is how important sound is. In college, in video college, we're always thought that video was 90% sound, you know, and I was like, where did they get this statistic from? I just felt like it was made up. But I did find a good study from Cleveland State University, I think it was. And what they did is they put gamers into a room and they put them in with HD video and SD video. And then they tested them again with mono sound and stereo sound. So they did it with hundreds of different gamers. And what the results indicated was really surprising. It said that while image quality had no effect on outcomes, sound quality almost universally impacted outcomes of interest, including several dimensions of presence and enjoyment. So basically the gamers weren't as engaged and didn't enjoy playing the game as much when the sound quality was reduced. So I just wanted to do a kind of live thing there now. So you're listening to me away, everything's grand. Then a machine sound comes on in the background. One sec. So now, as you're listening to me, how hard is it to take in what I'm saying and to take what I'm saying seriously? I'm going to stop it. Now, how much more comfortable do you feel listening? And I think a really good example of this as well was the Blair Witch Project. The whole movie was terribly shot, but it had excellent sound. That's where the money went in. It was sound producers, and sound on movie sets is a completely different department than video. So like that's why they're totally independent, and the only time that you notice them is when they do something wrong. They're kind of like the people behind the scenes kind of carrying the movie. So in order to get better quality sound, James, for example, is using a mic here now, and he's plugging that into his laptop, and that's great. But what I've realized actually over the last few days, I have a few plug-in mics and stuff, is that I'm always advising people if they're using their phones and capturing sound through their phones, they have to use a mic, because the mic on the phone is designed to be up right next to your face. Whereas with the laptop, the mic, kind of the structure of the mic is different, where it actually captures a much farther away range and it takes in more sound. So I'm perfectly happy with the sound, but what you need to do is to turn off any other computers, desktops or something that are in the room, fridges, close windows and doors, and just do everything you can to make sure that your sound is as good as it can be. So I've got 3 steps here to recording excellent sound. Do a sound recce, and that's where you go into different rooms in your house if you're stuck at home or if you're in the office, and you close your eyes for 5 seconds and you actually just listen. And it's amazing what you hear. Like our ears blur out so much, but when you listen, you're like, oh my God, where's that coming from? Or you might hear a tick, 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 you know, and all of those things will distract your viewer. So find the source of the noise and try and stop it. And using an external mic like James does, I might bring him in here later to see what he thinks about the quality. He uses a Yeti mic, and just for his own kind of opinion on how it changes. And then, like he said as well, testing. So doing a test with someone and recording it and just making sure that, okay, I sound good, and maybe trying it in another room and seeing, does that sound good too? So the second step then is to stabilize and position your webcam. So there's nothing worse than a wobbly table and you're like, hello, my name is Judie, and the camera is just constantly moving, and then the viewers are left in a dizzy state. So try to avoid that and put it on something that even that you're not touching. Like when I touch this table here now, you can see it wobble. So I try to stay away from the table and be independent from it. A big thing is to keep your lens at eye level. So you want the lens of your webcam to be exactly at the same eye level of yours, because if you're looking up, it's like House of Cards, you're kind of domineering. And if you're looking down, you can kind of appear small and subservient. So what you want to do is just get it right at eye level so that the viewer can decide whether they trust you or not. Basically, it kind of goes into non-verbal communication and stuff. Give them space. So as you can see, I'm back here. I just think it's nicer when you can try to not be kind of right up into the frame, you know. So you're giving the viewer a bit of space. And how I do this and not touch the table or my thing all the time is I use a clicker. So I plug the clicker into my laptop so that I can go back and forth from the different slides while being spacious. And these ring clickers are brilliant because I can still do jazz hands throughout the presentation without kind of holding something as a prop. So that's step 2. Step 3 then is to light yourself up. So the viewer is attracted to the brightest part of the frame. So you want to be the brightest part of the frame preferably. So I have set up this desk so that I'm in front of a big window here. And I I always make sure that like the light is coming right on me, so I'm not using any expensive lights or anything like that. If you're forced to film in the evening, then I would test out a few different lamps that you have at home. So, and rather than getting the lamp shining directly on you, because that gives it quite a two-dimensional look, you put one lamp on one side, one lamp on the other side, and get them both to light up different sides of your face. If one is a little bit darker than the other, that actually does give kind of a 3D look, and it can make you look nicer. We're actually blessed here in Ireland because of the constant cloud cover. It gives a lovely kind of soft look to the light. As opposed to kind of really hard contrasty sun shining in on us that can make dark and light shadows on our face. So we've got a lovely diffused kind of natural look from light. But there's a nice app that I used called Sun Surveyor Light, and what it does is it shows you where the sun will be at different times of the day. So based on that, you can say, my sun at the moment is over here, so I'm just getting kind of a bounce light onto me from outside. So I try not to film when it's shining directly on me, because I'll be squinting and there'll be hard contrast. And then you can use things like lights and reflectors. So there are reflectors which are great, which cost about €30, but an alternative to this is tin foil. So you can get a big, I don't know, cardboard box, wrap some tin foil around it, and you'll be amazed at how much the light will bounce onto your face. So say you've got light coming in one window like James has now, and you can't move your computer, it's just too big a deal to try and move it, then maybe put a reflector over here so the light bounces off that light and lights up this part of your face. It can work really well. And actually, sorry, I skipped that in the last step. You should also look into the lens. Oh no, I'm going into that in the next one. Sorry, confused. Okay, so that's 3, light yourself up. 4, design your background. So here I am actually in a wooden cabin down in Cove in Cork, and while my wooden cabin is lovely, it just doesn't work in terms of filming. I've tried it multiple times, right? And I don't know if you're watching Claire Byrne. I'm a big fan of Claire Byrne now, love her, what she's doing, but she's stuck at home at the moment, and she's filming from a kind of a cabin, I'd say, in her garden. But I just realized when watching it that it just doesn't convert well to camera. It just, whatever way it is, like this is lovely now and big and light, but on camera it just looks like a shed. So I bought these rolls of paper rolls from my local camera shop for €50, and I kind of put it on a little stand. Now I had these stands, so it was easy for me to do, but a stand is quite cheap as well. And then as you can see here, I have it sellotaped up to the other side. And what it's doing is just making me, again, the point of focus. So there's nothing, like anytime someone's on camera in their kitchen, I can't help but do a full analysis of, oh, that's a nice oven. Oh, they have a nice sink there now. Oh, isn't that lovely color paint? Jeepers, I'd almost get that for myself. Like, whereas by doing something like this, like you're making them focus on you and not be distracted by the other things around you. Forgot the clicker. So step 5, presentation tips. So I'm sure you're all aware, like what I advise is to dress as if you're going to meet your target audience. So, you know, like it's so easy. Like now I do have Uggs on underneath this that I wouldn't wear. I'd usually wear heels, but I can get away with it because you're not seeing below here. So I'm good. But dressing the part is important. And like I didn't have time to iron this morning, and I should have, because it's distracting for I think the wrinkles fell out by now, hopefully, so it should be fine. But any kind of coffee stains or anything like that, like you'd miss it if you were talking to someone in person. But because people are viewing the entire frame, you'll see it, you know, and you'll notice it in your recording afterwards. Another thing is to wear powder, like, and I'm talking to everyone, even if you don't usually wear makeup, they won't let you go on RTE without sending you to the powder room. Sometimes it's really obvious, sometimes not, but like just a tiny bit of powder, like just to get rid of that really shiny glare that the camera picks up, again, that the eye wouldn't pick up. Or if you don't want to do the powder thing, just get tissue and just dab it all over your face to take away that shine. And bring more energy. So we need, I don't know why the camera kind of dulls our personality down a bit. So when you're going on to do a session with someone, you kind of have to consider it like a performance. So you want to bring 10% more energy to it. And, you know, that's just kind of, I don't know, maybe kind of do some stretches before and just get into the zone for it. It really translates well. Show your hands. I'm quite handsy. I use my hands a lot. But when people can see your hands, they actually, studies show that they trust you more. So if I was sat like this for the entire thing, you'd be like, what is she doing? She's doing something else, you know. This is the big thing, looking into the lens. So here's me looking at my own video on the screen, right? Which is distracting, and I want to see kind of how I'm looking. And here's me looking into the lens. Can you see the difference between this and this? And how much more kind of you feel like, you know, you'd never break eye contact with someone if they were looking at you. But you kind of feel permission to break eye contact with me when I'm looking down and over and all over the place. But when I'm looking straight at you, you're like, even though I can't see you, say, you're like, oh, I better look back. It's just a natural thing. Also, you'll be speaking to people one-on-one, so that's a bit easier. But when you're recording, say you wanted to make a video using your phone, speaking to camera, to say to people, hello, my name is Judie, and instead of coming to you in person, what I'm going to do now is set up a Zoom call so that I can still give you the same benefits that I would have given you in person. We'll just be doing it on camera. So you could use that kind of as the first video that you send to people so that they're aware of what you're doing. But when you're speaking to a lens without anyone behind it, it can be really strange because it's so mechanical and you're speaking to a piece of technology. So what the old broadcasters used to do back in the day is they used to bring a picture of a loved one with them and put it right on top of the lens to remind themselves they're speaking to actual people and not just a piece of gear. And then the final thing is to keep watching yourself a lot. And there's loads of psychology behind this, because firstly, there's confirmation bias. If we think that we're terrible at presenting on camera, we will find every bit of evidence to back that up. So we need to keep watching ourselves to remove that psychological barrier. And then the other thing is there is the familiarity principle. So we like what we're familiar with. And what we're familiar with is the mirror version of ourselves, because we look in the mirror all the time, whereas the camera shows us the normal picture, or what other people see, and our faces aren't symmetrical, so we're seeing a little bit of a different picture than we're used to. The good thing about the back end settings of Zoom is that you can mirror the camera, which is a nice setting to do. So then you're more familiar with yourself and where your hair parting is and stuff like that, and you're not like, why do I look completely different? So that's a very, very quick 5 steps to getting your video better, and I hope that these were some way helpful. I'll go back to you, James.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. I I was picking out all the things that I'm doing wrong in the last few sections there, so my apologies. No, that's really good. I really appreciate that input. It makes such a difference. Like there's so many takeaways there, I think, in terms of what we could be doing, and what we probably should be doing, you know. So just kind of bear that in mind, I suppose. And even if you take 2 or 3 of those things in terms of what Judie's been talking about, I think for me, it's certainly looking at the camera more. Obviously, off the back of today, I will drag this desk out and put it in front of the light properly, which I probably should have done. But I'm conscious that my wife needs to jump in here in 15 minutes and go on a con call herself, so we're sharing the office. But no, I think that there's some really important lessons to be learned. I'll share some of the stuff around them. I know, Judie, you've got a few videos as well that I'd like to share, if you don't mind, awfully, in terms of just a bit more detail. And so I think if you don't mind, I might share those with people as we go. Go ahead.
One more, just the headroom. That's something that I'm noticing in a lot of people's videos online. There only should be a tiny bit of space between the top of your head and the top of the frame. So if you can like readjust the camera, because when you're kind of down here, now I know this is the background behind me, but like I see a lot of videos looking like this at the moment, and it makes such a big difference. A tiny change can just make a big difference. And clean your lens. Sorry, that's the last one. Get a lens cloth and actually give it a rub. It makes a huge difference to the quality.
Especially if we're using like our laptops. And then I think one of the key things there, I mean, I've been on a lot of sessions the last few weeks, and what I end up finding is that people are looking down into their laptop, and it's this kind of bizarre kind of setup. You see it kind of shining back up into their face. So I think like having it on eye level is quite important. That's probably one of the key kind of takeaways for me. And certainly the sound. I mean, so you were just talking about mics. I'm using a Yeti mic. I'll just chuck it up there. So it's one of these mics. Now, there's no need to have this type of mic, I think, for the work you're doing. It's mainly because I do some podcasting and recording and that sort of thing. So obviously the audio is important. But I'm using a Logitech, quite a good webcam as well. Again, the lighting's let me down, but like it's those kind of small things. And I think we might send out 2 or 3 links. I know you had some in there, Judie, in terms of what's good, like a mic, a webcam, You know, and even just to upgrade, I mean, for the sake of €100, you probably could have a really good setup, I feel. Would you agree?
I would, yeah. I suppose
Yeah.
I invested money into a MacBook Pro, and because I knew that the inbuilt webcam and the sound was good enough. I just didn't want extra stuff, you know. But if you're with an old laptop, then I would suggest, like an external mic and a nice webcam is probably the way to go.
Yeah, no, that's a really good idea. So the other thing that you said there, and I just want to pick up on it, and that is about recording a quick video of yourself in terms of the services that you're now offering, and the same service that you're offering as you always were, but now you're doing it on Zoom. And so like that is difficult for a lot of us. And you know, I jump on my phone a lot, and I push it out on what we do in terms of viewability, and I talk to people, and a few of you that are probably on this call, I've actually started using this really cool service. It's called Bonjoro.com. I don't know if people have seen that. Love it. I freaking love it. No, it's a bit vain. So you literally record, I literally upload, let's say we have people on our parent assisted technology course. And so I wanted to send them all a personal video to say, how are you getting on? I just want to check in, you know, hey, Joan, like, how are you? How's your son? And it's really personalized. And it's about 60 seconds, and it's about $15 a month, but I literally stand in front of my phone outside, relatively good lighting, whatever it is, and I just record like that video for that person, and I literally just send it off. And so I think if you get an opportunity over the next few days, wouldn't it be really nice to do a quick video and say, this is what we're doing, this is how we're doing it, and this is how we're going to serve you over the next few weeks. And look, I know that lots of us are somewhat uncomfortable with this current new normal, but it is what it is for the next few weeks. And I think it's just a case of getting our heads around it, and how do we use Zoom a bit better, and how do we connect with parents and students that are at home. So I'll stop talking off the cuff there, and I will go back to my sharing my screen, if that's all right. Right, I'm going to share my whole screen actually, because I want to jump into Zoom and show you a few bits and pieces. So bear with us for this. Okay. So people can see this. My terribly unorganized desktop is there too. All right. So I'm going to just jump. Let me see here. I just want to go into account settings once more on Zoom and just show you in terms of scheduling a meeting. So I'm already logged in, which is fine. And up here on the top right, I can just click on schedule a meeting. So I click schedule a meeting. Now this is you after setting up your either free or your pro account. Pro account is $30.99, certainly the one that I would be advising. So you just put in the topic, which is just the meeting. So this could be, you know, the family name or the session, a quick description if you wish. It could be either an initial assessment, or it could be a follow-up, or it could be a parent consultation, whatever is being said at that given time. And then obviously it's the date. So we pop in the date here. We pop in the duration. The time zone is default because I've set that up already. Is it recurring? Maybe. It depends. Like this could be a session with staff, or it could be a session that's ongoing. If it is, then just hit recurring. Now, for you guys right now, it's not that you need to have them register. That's more if you were sending out, like I could have done a registration with this link, and I would have hit required here, and then you would have had to register directly. But I wanted to do it through Google Forms because I just wanted to get a bit more information in terms of some of the issues people are having. Meeting password, obviously, like I say, that's set by default. You can make that a lot more complicated if you so wish. But these are, these are automated numbers. And again, this is like, is the video of the host going to be on? I have it all defaulted. And you would have seen these like 20 minutes ago when I set up the settings. These are the standardized settings. If you want to change them, you can. In terms of the meeting options, enable join before host. I don't want people to be able to join before me. So obviously I have that enabled. Enable waiting room. I have that enabled. Mute participants upon entry. It depends. You can do that if you so wish. And then I can set up alternative hosts. So for example, you can see here on this call, Judie's also a host. So she's like a co-host. So she can change a lot of settings within Zoom as well. And then the other thing I want to show you here, obviously then if I schedule, let's go ahead and just like, let's go ahead and do this. For an 11 o'clock tonight, that's going to be a tough one. Okay, so once you set up a meeting, you can automatically add it to your calendar if you haven't synced it already. And then here's your join link. So you can just copy the invite over here on the right. Perfect. Or you can start this meeting. You can go back in and edit this meeting. If I want to add a poll, if I wanted to hear, I could have done an option around setting up a poll here, like what's your thoughts on Zoom versus Teams, or whatever it might be. And it's just a way to bring in a small bit of interaction if you see fit. So I think that's kind of something that's nice. So I just want to show you one or two more settings. So you can see that, right? You can see my navigation bar here. Is that something that's appearing? I just want to see if I can bring up my settings for Zoom. Actually, 1 second there. I'm just going to stop sharing for a second. Just going to jump back into this. So again, I'm conscious that we're coming up to close to 12 o'clock. If people have questions or queries in terms of what we covered here, please just let us know. And if you want, you're more than welcome to jump on and now is your practice time, right? You can jump on and ask those questions directly if you so wish. Have you got anybody that's brave enough that wants to come on? Or drop your questions in. I can see you're busting to speak. We got somebody. Can
you hear me?
Hi.
Hi, James. It's Will here.
Hi, Will. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm just wondering, has anybody ever used this for actually doing an assessment with test materials and, that we use? I mean, how would that work? And has anyone on this panel or on who you're hosting, has anyone tried that?
I think that's a really good question. I've spoke to a few education psychologists just in the last week in terms of people that are using it. Now, my experience predominantly has been with occupational therapists and speech and language therapists that have been using it for quite a while, both in the States and a few here. I mean, maybe there's case in point of me grabbing a few of those and even doing a pre-record and just asking them a few of those questions in terms of how they engage. But I think your question around if there's anyone on this panel who has used Zoom or something similar, it'd be great to hear your input.
Avril, I think.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I just lost on how you moved from the screen yourself to what you had on the computer. Because if I'm talking to someone about a report, I will want to put up the report so I can point out things with the cursor.
I gotcha. Yeah. So at the bottom there, you'll see the controls, and there's a share screen option. So I'm going to do a bit of detail on this as well. And there's a small arrow to the right of it. And so if you just click on share screen, and then it'll give options within there. So it can either be, if you had Word open or if you had a PDF open, you could literally open that. You could open the whiteboard that's in here. You could connect your iPad. You could, there's a whole array of things that you could share.
That's great.
If you saw fit. Yeah. I mean, there's one other thing that I just want to, I'll go into more detail on this because we could be talking about forever, but there are advanced options. And so you can share content from a second camera. I think I'll do a pre-recording of this. So basically you can still see me on the webcam, but you can also do a content from a second camera. So that could be your assessment forms or sheets if they're in paper format currently. And so we literally could have one camera focused on those and the other camera is on you directly. But I think Will's point is really important in that it probably is useful to get input from people that have done it directly in your direct field. So I'm happy to dig into that a little bit more this week if that makes sense.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Avril. Anybody else?
Hi, James. Annette Duggan here. Well done.
Hi, Annette. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
Good.
Is there any particular browser that Zoom works better with? I have been using Hangouts through school with students, and my head is wrecked because it doesn't work with Safari. I'm running Safari and Chrome on the one Mac, and I have issues with passwords and not syncing. So would you say Zoom is compatible with does it work better with any browser?
Yeah, so there's a few plugins that come. I would say undoubtedly it's probably better on Chrome. Now
Okay.
there's a few options. So you can view Zoom either in the browser, or else a lot of you would have seen, if this was your first time using Zoom, you were
Yes.
probably asked or prompted to download a small little piece of software. Was that the case for a lot of you?
No.
Yeah, so sometimes that you get prompted if you haven't used Zoom previously. So it just asks you to download a small bit of software, and that basically just installs a small client bit of software on your laptop. And then whenever you open Zoom, it opens within that. So I know I certainly hear where you're coming from. There's a Chrome plugin that's available that I think is probably the most straightforward to use. And I love using Safari myself, but certainly Chrome is probably more interactive with a lot of these pieces. So I'll send you that link as well. I'll just pull that down there.
Okay, and James, just a second
Yeah.
point that I'm after coming up against, and this is working through school with students on Hangouts. I had to lay down very clear boundaries with students that some of them are arriving to these Hangout meetings in pajamas, in sitting in beds and that. And so I just had felt I had to go back to my school and said, please, you know, if you're going to be setting up these meetings, I need to lay down these very, very strict, I suppose, boundaries. Has anybody come up against that as either? You know, have you come up against that with students?
Yeah, well, I mean, pajamas aside, I suppose it's even being on time for the sessions is a key thing.
Yes.
I've found. That's a big issue with me. People are blaming the Wi-Fi or this or that. No, there's a bit. It has to be a little bit of flex, I suppose, within reason. But I think your point is really important. That maybe it's a case that we just. I mean, I'm happy to even draft up a few kind of. We won't call them rules. We'll call them sort of like
Etiquette
or guidelines. Yeah. Here's how you should be coming online. Yeah, certainly. I think, and maybe taking a few of the things from Judie. Like, I have pulled up a kind of a parent and child guideline booklet, actually, like a 2 or 3 pager that I'm going to send out during the week. And literally in that, I might just pop in like, here are the tips. Here's what a parent needs to do. And some of the things that Judie talked about would be really important. Like, have the camera set up, make sure it's charged. Like, the amount of times I've been on sessions and the laptop literally dies, or the battery goes, or, you know, whatever it might be, or actually what I've seen a lot is that kids, and look, this is no fault to parents at the moment in terms of the situation we find ourselves in, but kids might be in the front room watching TV, and that's when I'm doing the session with them, and they're sitting on the couch and they're still watching a bit of TV over here. And yeah, the poor mom and dad are in the kitchen working, and, you know, so I think it's difficult where we're currently at and the position we find ourselves in. So I think setting some boundaries or sort of guidelines might be good, and I might just write a few of those up.
Okay.
That's a really good point. Thanks, Annette, for that. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, James. Brilliant session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Will. If you just want to turn on your mic there, Will, I think it's muted.
And me as well, James has been has a hand up.
Who's that?
Yeah, I actually am just in response to Will's question there. So I'm Emma McGee from Dyslexia Ireland. We're actually starting online assessments this week with clients. So and I suppose how we prepped that, we had to scan in all of our test materials, make sure they were, you know, really good quality, cropped them if necessary, put them in a folder together so it's like a slideshow. And then prior to that, the plan would be, you know, make sure that you have the test materials ready to go for that particular you know, which ones that you want to use for that particular client. We've done, in preparation for it as well, we've got a couple of our nieces, nephews, kids together and done a few mock sessions and just made sure everything, you know, ran smoothly. A few issues we've come across so far. We obviously use the WASI. So we do the WASI abbreviated, so it doesn't include the block design. So we have matrix reasoning and vocabulary, and that gives us a full scale IQ 2. For the WIAS, everything seems to be okay. That can go, you know, ahead quite smoothly. The CTOP, the only issue with that's the phonics test. The blending subtest, I suppose it requires very, very accurate audio. And so again, we've kind of been talking about it amongst ourselves, and we don't know whether it would be an accurate one to do. Yeah, and I think, and the whisk as well, we are able to do the whisk working memory. And then if necessary, if we do need to do a processing speed, I know one particular parent I've been talking to about that. I'm planning to email them a copy of the processing speed so they can print it off and do it there in front of me. So that's how we've organised this. We're starting on Wednesday, and hopefully all will go well.
That's super helpful. Thank you so much. Can I just ask you two questions on that, if you don't mind?
Yes.
So just in terms of duration, like how have you worked that in, or what's your process around duration versus what would have been face to face?
Yeah, I think very similar. I think we're going to plan and do like 35 minutes, allow them to take a 10-minute break. And we've said they can go off out of the room. We've asked parents to stay in the room with them during the session, just to make sure that, I suppose, they don't run away. And can just make sure that there's no issues around, like that they are compliant, they're not, turning off the mic or whatever. Then after that break, they'll come back and then do another 35 minutes. Our assessments tend to usually take around that, maybe maximum 2 40-minute slots. And then feedback, either do it over the phone or through Zoom with the parents.
That's great, and the final, that's actually really good to have. I think parenting the room is so important as well. Actually, that's a really good point. I'm going to jot a few of these into a guideline. But in terms of recording the session, do you see it as being beneficial, or is that something that you've thought about? Are you going to record the session?
We've discussed this actually as a team, and we decided against doing any type of recording. Definitely with the visual recording, we were told we had because of GDPR, we've been told by our GDPR officer, no, absolutely not. Not a good idea to have video recording of any kids. The audio recording, again, we've kind of talked about it a bit. Normally in a session, some of our psychologists might actually audio record on their phone just for some of the items. So that's kind of what we decided, that we would actually have our phone and audio record. Obviously the sound quality is not going to be great, but at least nothing is being saved as audio on it, and then we can put into our documents that we give out to parents that nothing will be audio recorded or video recorded. So
yeah,
maybe
I think you have to be you have to stay on the side of caution too, like I mean, for sessions like this, it's okay to record within reason, but I think for sure, I prefer if we all were on the side of caution. And yeah, it might be worth, I might have a chat with a few people around GDPR and just see what really, where do we draw the line in terms of, could we, like for example, we could locally record the audio, and that might be a good thing to do. And then you could maybe get it transcribed and maybe give them a transcription of the session if you didn't want to share the audio directly. There's probably a few little workarounds, but I think the key issue around GDPR is, if I do audio record it right now and I store it on my laptop, on my server, and that's I think where the issue arises around GDPR. But yeah, I mean, I know for example in the US, they have what they would say, in terms of speech and language pathology or therapy, they have relaxed the conditions currently. So a lot of the data protection and concerns around privacy in the US across the board have been reduced, or have been, they're saying relaxed is the word they're using. So basically, whereas before you would have had quite stringent controls, whereas now, like, they're actually letting people use the likes of WhatsApp and FaceTime for some telehealth services. So it's interesting to see how that's happening. And I suppose what I'm most curious about is what's going to happen once we go back to normal, or whatever normal will be. Like where do we go back to, and in terms of that privacy, where does that let us? But anyway, that's a discussion for another day. Is there anything else that people have had experiences with or questions on? I think for me, as you think about those things, there's some really nice and useful bits have come up in that last little segment, and I over the next few days I'll update the booklet and I'll add in some of that sort of stuff. It's just going to be a PDF that you can take, and I'm going to do up a 2 or 3 pager that you can give to parents as well. So if you have any questions or anything else you'd like me to add to it, and I might do a private recording myself of the actual screen and all the intrinsic details that you might need. Anything else from anybody else? Judie, you anything else to add, or I think your mic is off there at the moment.
I'm just seeing Will there is just raising his
Will.
hand.
Hi, Will. If you just want to turn on your mic there, Will. You're just unmuted.
There, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Who was the last speaker? I missed that. Who was that? The Dyslexia Association, was it?
Yeah, it was the Dyslexia Association.
Yes, yeah.
Is it Emma, is it?
It is, yes.
Hi, Emma. Yeah.
Emma. Okay.
Yes. Hello.
Emma, if I want, you put all the test materials on, you scanned them all, did you?
Yeah.
Okay. For some things, but not everything, because you can't scan certain things if people need to be with you. You can't do it on Zoom, like the processing speed and block design and stuff like that.
Yeah, block design, you can't. Processing speed, I suppose they need to have the form in front of them. Now, I mean, I suppose Pearson would probably have a heart attack if they heard what I'm doing with the materials, but sure.
Yeah.
But so far with all the typical, the other thing as well.
Have you actually finished in a whole assessment on this on Zoom?
I have done a mock assessment with my niece. So I suppose there was one or two that I probably would have stopped early, but everything seemed to go okay. I haven't done an official one with an actual client. Our first ones are booked in on Wednesday.
Okay, so if I wanted to communicate with you, not to take up more time, it would just be, how would you be through the Dyslexia Association?
Yeah,
is that it?
So Emma McGee at dyslexia.ie. So my name is up there on the, sorry, my husband is using the office at the moment, which is why I don't have the video on. So it's McGee, MAGEE at dyslexia.ie.
MAGEE, yeah, at dyslexia.ie, yeah. Okay, thanks.
No problem.
Thanks, Will. And I think that's really interesting, obviously, to connect a few of you guys if that works out. One last question, Emma, sorry for hogging you. In terms of scanning the stuff, are you putting them on an internal server or a drive and then sharing them with people, or are you just doing like a screen share of the stuff from Zoom?
A screen share. So we
Gotcha.
have them at the moment on our internal drive save, so they're accessible by all the psychologists, and then we're advising the psychologists to put them on their desktop just so that it eases up on the Wi-Fi, and then it shares screen. Yeah. Okay,
that's great. That's great. I might do a bit of an in-depth in terms of, because I know that's probably something, there's a lot of stuff you can do around the share screening and giving control on the other side. And in terms of Will's questions there, I just wonder, maybe there's something, if you were doing an assessment and we needed him to do something on the other end, I'm going to try and have a think about, like, could we send in material prior? Could we get the parent to record it? Or, I'll have a think about it and see if there's, because like I've dealt with lots of speech and language pathologists who have done writing assessments and writing tests and speed tests. So there's something in it. So I just need to have a think about it in a bit more depth to see how it will apply to this group. So I'm conscious that we're 13 minutes over right now. So lots of people have stuff that I need to get to. You all have my email address. If there's anything that I can do, to give a bit more help and guidance, just hit me with an email. Similarly to Judie, I'm sure that Judie would only be too delighted to offer her services in terms of getting better on video for all of us. So I'll pop her details into a follow-up email this evening or tomorrow. And please just follow up with me directly. I know that we could have gone on here for 3 hours and we could have done a lot of in-depth stuff, but I'm conscious of people's times. But well done for coming on the call. A lot of EdPsychs and varying different people over the last few weeks had just got in touch, had a few queries and questions, and I just thought this might be a useful session to do for people today. So if there's any feedback, or if you want me to do a follow-up session or whatever to go into a bit more depth and detail, please let me know, and I'll try and arrange something next week. Thank you to Emma, obviously, and to Will, and to everybody that jumped on there and gave a bit of input, and it was really nice to get that. And obviously it makes an awful difference, because hearing from the trenches is the most important part, right? It's all well and good us talking here to talk, but it's about what's really happening. And maybe we might, a follow-up next week would be really interesting to see how people get on over the next week. All right, I'm going to call it there, if you don't mind. Well done.
James,
Yes, hi, Kate.
Hi, can I just give 2 quick points to everybody before they go?
Yeah.
It might be 2 useful ones. Just I heard, sorry, my name is Rebecca Good. I'm from AIRM, the National Assessment Agency.
Hi, Rebecca.
I just heard Emma saying there about the scanning the WISP. And Emma, you said, oh, Pearson might kill you for it. I saw they released a statement and a letter allowing practitioners to breach their copyright rules if the materials were scanned and kept in a secure place. So if you want, I'll find that letter and send it on to maybe you, James, to send to everybody else, to you, Emma. And the other thing was I know there's some people on the call here that are using the Woodcock-Johnson cognitive battery as well, and the attainment battery. Woodcock-Johnson have uploaded all of their digital files onto their scoring platform for you to use, so it's very easy to conduct an assessment with that too, and all the files are there digitally. So there's nothing physical really that you need to work with in the Woodcock-Johnson, like the blocks or the processing speed thing. So it's quite an easy one to administer over Zoom as well. So people might want to know that too. That was it.
That's brilliant, Rebecca. Thank you so much. I might follow up with you later today if that's okay, and just get some of that detail, and I'll check it out to people tomorrow. Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. Okay, that's brilliant. If there's anything else that you're too shy or quiet to talk about on this call, just send me an email afterwards, and I'll make sure that everybody gets it. Guys, thank you so much for your attention, and have a lovely day and a great week, and obviously stay safe. Judie, thank you so much for your time this morning as well. I really appreciate it. See you soon, guys. All the best. Thank you.